Nice to see everyone this morning on this early spring morning. Early spring is red tea from Fujian province. So by the end of this session, you're going to know and get an up close and personal feel for one of the hybridizers of early spring. You're going to know more about Tuman, which is the area where this was hybridized. But before we start down and open up and really get going on this journey, let's talk about something that you received in your email about 45 minutes ago. So for those of you who just roll out of bed, getting ready to have your first cup of tea and enjoy the session, look at your email because there's something called a Saturday challenge in it. This is something that occurred to me last night when I read this article. I quickly glanced through it. It'll take you about 2 minutes or less to get through the article. And everybody except Rob is allowed to comment on this. Rob has already sent me the comment, and his answer is right. So I'd like to give the rest of you an opportunity to take a quick look at that and tell me what's wrong with this article. For those of you who are newcomers, you're possibly not likely to be able to pick up what's wrong. But for those of you who've been with us for a while, you should pick this up almost right away. So that's one thing. So while you're thinking about this, let me tell you a couple things that have occurred in the shop this week. First is, we had through one of our wonderful team members, Jeremy, she brought in a nonprofit group into the shop on Wednesday. And this nonprofit is called Climate Music. And so what they're attempting to do is to invite musicians from all over the world to perform all over the world. And through those performances, to heighten people's awareness through the music of the issues of climate warming, global change, warming change. So I really didn't understand this group very well before they came. They brought a flutist from China with them, and he gave an impromptu performance, a short performance while he was here. It was wonderful. And this is a very interesting group. And I think over time, we're going to see if we can't strike some sort of relationship with the group. So that was one of the exciting things that happened midweek. Early spring. Something else about early spring happened this week. Actually, the origin of what I'm going to talk about happened 3 months ago. So I'll start at the beginning. Lady comes in, and she's been in here once or twice or 3 or 4 times before. Very nice. Brings me a small packet of tea. First question, do you understand Chinese? Now, sometimes I'm a good guesser, so I can understand a little bit. I say, give me the package. Look at the package. I burst out laughing because it is early spring, but it was in Chinese. And then she tells me the story of this. She said her sister had sent this package to her because this lady had said, oh yeah, we've got this tea shop in Montclair, and they know a few things. And so the sister said, well, see if you can get this tea. See if they have this tea. And so her sister had gotten this gift because her sister worked in diplomacy. And she'd gotten this gift from somebody famous in China. She'd had that tea, and she just fell in love with it. And she hadn't found it in any other tea shop in the US. And that's why when her sister said, well, this shop has a few teas, she said, well, take this in and see. And when I looked at it, that's why I laughed, because it's one of the most famous, well-known teas in China today. So I said, can I open this? And she said, yeah, my sister said that if you have it, to open it to make sure you're giving me the right thing. I said, okay. So I opened it, made a cup, gave her most of the cup. As soon as I tasted and smelt it, it was like, ah, yeah, we have this. Not only do we have this, ours is a little bit better than this. And so told her the price. She said, well, I want an ounce of that, but should my sister call, don't tell her the price. And so she sent it back to her sister. And her sister was so delighted because she was able to come into contact with this wonderful tea that we're going to do today. All right, I've given you all a couple minutes to think about this article. And this article has something to do with a dark tea and helping as providing a health benefit. And assuming that the author has good intent, we have to ask ourselves the following question. Is this article a good article? And if it's not, why not? So you read through the article, you get all these scientific facts, and there's some qualifications to these facts. That's good, because anytime you're doing science, you gotta have all those qualifications built in, right? Because not everything is, as Rob says, correlation doesn't equal causation. Yeah, that's all good. That's all good. I might give you one more minute, and if anybody else can spot the major problem with this article, I'm going to talk for one more minute. Let me know. So, what else? I said that we were going to talk about Nangjunda. Nangjunda is one of the hybridizers of this tea. So there are 3 hybridizers. One guy, during the time it was done, and it was finished in 2005. It was ready to go in 2005. And when they were working on this, there were 3 of them. The guy who was senior in this tea industry, the most senior guy in the tea industry in China, was working on this with him. Liang Junda is senior from working in Tuman, which is in the Wui Mountains. And so he did things like Smoky Pine and Victory and a bunch of other teas that come from Tuman. And so they had come and said, yeah, let's work on this project together. And their original intent was not to create a red tea. That was what was so interesting about this. Their original intent was to create a green tea. But as we know from tea history, and we've talked about this many, many times, accidents occur. Fortuitous accidents occur. So they had one of these fortuitous accidents. They unintentionally, they were working late one night, and they're in the lab, and they left tea leaves under a heat lamp. Next morning, you get up. Oh no, these leaves have changed. How did we do that? And they said, well, okay, this is a fail, but we might as well experiment with it and see what it tastes like. And this led them to understand that this particular varietal, this particular cultivar, was going to be best as a red/black tea. Remembering in this shop what everybody in the West, Britain, US, everywhere, calls black tea, Chinese have never called black tea. They've always called it red tea. British got that, Dutch got that all messed up. And before you know it, it became black tea. Oh, let's talk about that in a minute. You know, because I'm a little confused now that I'm thinking about it. This board in here, several of the boards in here have red tea, which I just explained to you as Western, black tea, meaning that it's fully oxidized, right? We all know this. Last week, and all them colors, we talked about the oxidation, right? But wait a minute, on the boards here, we have something called black tea. Oh no, maybe I got confused. Answer is not even a little bit of confusion. Black tea in Chinese, hei cha, always, no exceptions, refers to fermented tea. Fermentation is little microorganisms, yeast, molds, fungi, and bacteria are working on the tea leaf to change the nature of the tea leaf. Oxidation, you got a chemical process going on. Now, the Chinese, in response to Western confusion, have talked about, okay, hei cha, hei always means black, except now the Chinese, in order to kind of accommodate this confusion, call it dark tea. That's bad translation. But just like black was a bad translation for red, that's the way it is. And this is how we came to that. So it seems like I'm just wandering around talking about red and black and dark. Let's think about that article for a minute. That article, yes?
Well, there's a comment from a participant when you're ready to take it.
I'm ready to take it.
So this participant asks, so what is dark tea, quote unquote? Are they saying green, white, and yellow won't help?
Okay, this participant, just like Rob this morning, nailed the key problem. The key problem is that the tea that was used to perform these experiments to derive this apparent correlation to a health benefit was dark tea. That means it was fermented tea. Over the years, over and over and over again, in China, we're seeing more and more studies about how fermented tea might have a positive result in working with diabetes. So you have nailed it, because the author writes all this up dutifully, honestly, trying to interpret what they read in a big old deep scientific project, trying to convey that to Westerners who don't have time nor inclination to read these very technical scientific papers, and then makes the major gaffe at the end of the article. What does this author say? Oh, and by the way, why don't we all have a cup of Lady Grey? Lady Grey. Author is referring to Earl Grey, right? Form of Earl Grey. It's very floral. It's a blend. Let's say that we don't care that it's a blend. Oh, but a blend of what? It's a blend of red teas. It is not a dark tea. So you get all this article, you get this benefit from drinking dark tea. Let's drink dark tea. Let's drink more dark tea. And at the end, let's get our cups of Lady Grey. Oops. Big error. So none of you would have made this error. This I know, but it was hugely hilarious when I first looked at it, and then I thought, wow, that's really damaging, because people are going to go home and say to their families, oh yeah, let's get out some they're going to use the term black when they really make red. Let's get out some red tea and let's go to it. And we're going to whip this diabetes out into shape, or pre-diabetes into shape. When in fact, that's not at all what the article is suggesting. So this is why close reading is important. And this is why in the tea industry, you got to understand the terms, because as consumers, if we don't understand the terms, we don't grok what the relationship of everything is. The implied question, by the way, of this commentator also was, do other styles of tea also provide the same sort of benefit? And we don't know. And that's not what they're working on. And I'm sure that they've tried other styles of tea and so far haven't had any startling effect to make the same suggestion. Fermented tea is truly different. So that is why there is no allusion, no intentional allusion to any other style of tea. By the way, one last thing before we launch into Fujian in early spring. One thing I saw first thing this morning in all caps on an internet article was green tea apparently can bring COVID to a stop. All right, let me explain to you what this article seems to really suggest. This is from studies in Japan. Their conclusion is, it's a very funny conclusion, but once I explain this, you'll understand why. Their conclusion is, we should develop candy with the elements of green tea in it. So, and again, you'll understand why this is an interesting conclusion. The research seems to show that the catechins in green tea occupy the receptors that the spike protein would like to occupy, the COVID spike protein would like to occupy. Therefore, it brings its replication to a stop. So let's make sure, because hey, I just talked about usage of language and words, and you can't be sloppy. It would have been easy for me to have gotten on and said, oh, green tea cures COVID. But that's not what this article says. It says if you are consuming enough, it will not allow COVID that's in your gastrointestinal or lungs to replicate. What if you have COVID in your bloodstream? It'll continue to replicate. Remember, COVID seems to sneak into various places. But if it's in the lungs and the gastrointestinal area, apparently what this research seems to indicate, and that's why they suggested candy with green tea catechins in it, suck on that, and then, you get your whole system filled up, the receptors in those areas filled up, and the COVID has nowhere to go and says, I give up, I'm leaving now. So really a lot of interesting work being done. The Indians, I'm talking about people from India, 2 years ago published an article about red/black tea. I know there's still work going on, and the Japanese actually referred back to this article, and they actually think that the red/black tea might also have some benefit to be doing that as well. More later about that, because everybody's scrambling around, because wouldn't that be a wonderful solution to those types of COVID infections? Remembering again, I did not say, nor imply, nor did the article imply it solves all the COVID issues. But in the areas I talked about, it appears to play a role in preventing COVID spike proteins from replicating. All right, we've done a lot of intro this morning, and we still haven't gotten to early spring. I mean, it looks like I'm still in autumn. Last week, autumn colors, and I haven't moved to early spring yet. Let's go to early spring, and let's go to Fujian province. So Fujian province is southern China on the coast of the Pacific. Part of that looks straight across the channel to the islands just before Taiwan, very close to Taiwan. Wui Mountains are in that area. Wui Mountains, when you think of Fujian, if you think of a province, you go north and then slightly to the west. That's where the Wui Mountains is. In those mountains, right on the border with Jiangxi province, is a village called Tuman. Most people, if you have no business there, you won't be able to get in there. You can't get in as a tourist. You just can't get in there. It's gated. They have a bunch of people wandering around milling around the front gate, pretending not to pay attention. Oh, they're paying real close attention. And you got to have business to go there. Farmer, in fact, has to come down and get you. People who live there have to come down and get you, sign, that, oh, you're a real person who's coming to really do something that's not bad. Why is this? Because this area, which a while ago, years ago, I should say, was open to tourists, used to have particularly Chinese tourists enter. And I sent a picture of a bridge, a red bridge across a ravine, and that ravine separates the village from the natural forest, which is adjacent to Tuman, this village. And so tourists were going into the forest, and that was great because, you're getting a primal forest experience. Oh, except for one thing. Most of them weren't returning. Now, as it turns out, that forest has all sorts of poisonous things in it. And in fact, as far as anybody knows, in the world, per square whatever measurement, it has more poisonous snakes than anywhere else in the world. So these people were happily going in there, happily exploring until they weren't, and then not coming back. So the government put an end, and that bridge is closed tight. You cannot enter that. But I wanted to show you what it looks like from across the road. Oh, and by the way, why were we allowed in again? Oh, that's right. We do tea. And the farmers in this area do tea. And so they came down and vouched for us and took us up. It's a really interesting place as you're going up there. Monkeys all over the place. And a huge sign in Chinese which says, hey, folks, no feeding the monkeys, please. These monkeys are wild. And if you aggravate them, they will bite you. So what did we see on the way up? We saw a place where you can stop, and of course the farmer stops, but does say to us, okay, let's just get outside the car a little bit, but let's not walk over to where those monkeys actually are. In the meantime, there's other Chinese people over right next to the monkeys. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So you get back in the car and go to the village. How high up is this village? At the highest point, it's 7,000 feet above sea level. At the point where early spring was hybridized, that's about 5,000 feet above sea level. So it actually, during the winter, gets cold here. You can get dustings of snow. Primary word on dustings. You don't get Minnesota snow. Hundreds of feet of snow. No, it's dustings, and therefore tea plants can survive. So for this particular cultivar, early spring is a particular cultivar. It grows, and it was hybridized from wild tea bushes that grow throughout this whole area. And so, like I said, they were experimenting, trying to make green tea. And the idea behind this was they were going to make because they knew that the wild tea tasted good, but they were only tasting it and using it as green tea. So that was the idea, to be able to cultivate it, get it, hybridize it, be able to get the farmers to grow it as a cultivar and make money. So they did succeed, again through a lucky accident. And in those pictures, you see several people. So in the picture where you see Xiaobei and I at the table, you see Liang Junda. That's the Chinese guy, not pouring tea, but the other guy who's going to receive the tea, sitting right next to me. That guy is Liang Junda. So we know him, and we've known him for a number of years. And really an interesting guy. He's a Beijing guy, but he lived in Fujian for many, many years and was involved in the smoky pine process for many years. So he's a tea guy at heart. And so it was fascinating. That was the dinner many years ago where we sat down with him, and I asked the following question. I said, my friend, what caused you to try and hybridize this? Then he goes through the whole story. It's really interesting. And his wife, who you can't really see very well, who's sitting at the head of the table, knows the UC Davis under the Mondavi Institute, the Tea Institute. There's the Tea Institute up at UC Davis. She knows that. And she knew quite a lot about what was going on in terms of tea research here. And so he's going through everything, and this was this story. I've mentioned this before. And in fact, I'm going to just gloss through this next part because I'm really focusing on him right now. But the part that he sussed out right away, because anytime we're at a banquet with Chinese friends and so forth, they ask out of politeness, well, what do you do? And yeah, we're in tea. And well, what aspect? And you know, I give a little brief discussion, you know, small cup to big cup, bridge, all those key words. And he turned to the farmer who was pouring the tea and he said, these guys are going to control your future. Because this problem of going from small cup to large cup is exactly what he'd worked on for 10 years. Hadn't figured it out. It seems like it should be easy, right? Just like everything over the internet seems like it should be easy. Oh, you just do this, you do that, and boink, you get a result. Well, yes, you do get a result. Do you get this result? Answer is no. There's steps and there's things that you've got to understand about the tea. And we did, suffice it to say, 2 years of experimentation before we were able to make this work. So you see the same gentleman years later in a couple other pictures. One of them has a picture of Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba. Familiar to any of you? So why is it that the boss and I don't talk about all of these things usually? In China, we do generically talk about. In China, you get the best tea from tea purveyors who know the farmers, the scientists, and the famous people in China are also going to exactly this set of people because they want the best stuff. So that's just a picture to show you that this is part and parcel of how tea is done. Not here, but certainly at Sophie's, it's done that way. So every year we get almost 2 pounds of this stuff from our friend. And so obviously we're getting the best stuff. And that's why, by the way, in the beginning of the session, that lady sister was so blown away by what she had. She had good stuff. Oh, there was no problem. Hers was good. But wait a minute. Do you want better or do you want best? Here, we only think about best. And so this is the tea we're sharing with you this morning. And we're so excited to bring this one to you. Are there techniques or steps that are different from autumn colors? Yeah, there are some, but the basics are all the same. You pick. This is a bud pick. You pick spring. This is spring pick. You wither so that tea has pliability. You then break down the tea leaves, I should say, so that it's exposed to oxygen. The insides are exposed to oxygen and they interact and make those chemical changes. And then you pile and let that oxidation occur, just like last week, no exceptions. And at the very end, you bake. So the framework does not change. The same. There are little steps. So sometimes, not sometimes, in this case, they'll sieve the tea in between the piling and the baking because they're trying to make uniformity in the tea leaves. They'll also bake twice instead of once. And so even a lower temperature the first time around and then bake again. So there's several additional techniques, but you and I don't really care about those. I mean, I care because technically it's interesting. But at the end of the day, most of us care, is this stuff any good? Gosh, you're hyping it up. You're talking about it for so long. I'm so thirsty. Oh, you are thirsty. Where's my tea? So let me ask Biju, the tea master, to come forward and demonstrate how to brew this tea. And then you'll get a chance to brew this tea. And then you'll be able to tell me, you know, John, I'm not sure about what you said. Or, John, this is even better than what you said. You're going to have some opinion here fairly shortly. So it is with great pleasure I bring Biju, the tea master, up.
早上好，早上好。Good morning. Yeah, we do, so red tea from Fujian, our province in China. It's also called Jinjunmei, so it's famous, so we do, the same, if you like it, the cupping, the even large, but, my rhythm still, the same Gongfu cha in China. So I use the 4. So today, this section. Okay, just help me. I take a while.
Yeah. So this is the tableau for today. She's using 4 cups to cool and dissipate the steam faster. If you just have 2 cups, it's no problem. Tea toy, and strainer. What is it you must have? The only thing you must have is 2 cups. These other things are fun. They help you be present. They help you get into tea rhythm. But are they necessary to make the tea? The answer is no. It's the 2 cups that are necessary to make the tea. All right. So she's drawing 200-degree water because what she's going to do is make sure that all the glasses are really, really clean. We know they're clean, but you still do this anyway. And to heat the glasses, because one of these glasses is going to end up being the recipient of the tea leaves. And you want to use the heat to wake up those tea leaves. Oh, and Tea Master right away starting out having fun. You can tell she's in a good mood because she's pouring the tea from so hot. Now, don't do this at home unless you're practiced, because you're going to get water everywhere. All right, and you notice she said something about large cup with small cup Gongfu style. What she means by this is essentially when you do small cup tea, The principles are the same. Of course, the tools are somewhat different, but the principles are the same. Can you be distracted when you're doing small cup? Answer is no. You'll pour and make mistakes everywhere. You'll not satisfy your recipient of the tea. That's a big no-no. We have the same principle. When you're doing large cup, you got to be focused. You got to be present. If you're not present, you're not gonna make a great cup of tea. All right, Tea Master is drawing 175-degree water. She's gonna dissipate the steam and cool it down. Because remember, the instructions call for 170-degree. 4 grams, the 4 grams you already have in your packages. And you're gonna have a 3-minute brew on this. Remember, you're not brewing this time, you're just watching, because she's gonna brew with you as soon as we complete this. Or shortly after we complete this, let me put it that way. So you see, going through this rhythm with 4 cups, you can dissipate the steam, lower the heat. Why is that important? Gosh, isn't 175 equal to 176 and 177 and 180? In fact, why am I fooling around with this at all? Well, with this type of tea, every single type of detail, actually all the teas, details make the difference, but boy, oh boy. Do you like flat flavor, flat aroma? I don't. By paying attention to these details, you get the best aroma, the best taste possible.
So if you have a temperature controlled teapot and you can program 170 degrees, would you still go through the process of dissipating the steam?
Great question. Is dissipating the steam important if you have a temperature control kettle where you can dial in 170? And the answer is yes, it is important. I wouldn't do it as long as how she just did it, but yes, you will make it brighter if you go through at least a couple of
3
those.
minutes.
Yeah, got it. So you see she's poured it. Let's take a look at this. Yours is going to look like this shortly. Looks like about 50-50, half on the bottom reaching up on the top, half on the top reaching down to the bottom. Just a beautiful, beautiful picture here. Also, oh, wait a minute. There's white things in here. Wow, how did that happen? Oh, that's right. Those are trichomes. So for those of you who are new to the broadcast, trichomes are those white hairs on the leaves themselves. And when bugs bite into those trichomes, it's, oh, yuck, whee, and they go away. What are the trichomes full of? They're full of polyphenols. And what do we know about polyphenols? Generally speaking, bitter. Even to bugs, bitter. So, this is a 3-minute steep. Let's go back to this village. So the villagers, in order to make a pound of this, need around 60 to 70,000 hand motions if they're just getting buds. Now think about that in a minute. 60 to 70,000. You know, you talk about carpal tunnel. I mean, I think after 5,000 of those hand motions, oh, I need disability. I can't do this anymore. So you saw in one of the pictures, you saw this woman, she's 73 years old in that picture with the basket on her back. Hey, this is good news for all of us. Maybe you just don't get carpal tunnel when you're 70 and over. And so you go there and then you can pick forever. I don't think that's true either. But what I'm trying to indicate is many of those pickers are in that age range, 60 to 80, easily a number of them. You also have some younger pickers, but what's happening in China is that villages are under more and more pressure to get pickers who really want to do that as a job. Why? It's seasonal. Secondly, it sounds easy. I mean, when you go and get the instructions, oh, go there and pick 70,000 and bring it back to me. Let's see. Do they need to be the same size? Can I throw in a few extra leaves so that I can do this faster? Oh no, there are specific rules. By the way, that was the 3-minute timer. We'll continue in a minute without it. Let's watch what the tea master does. She separates the tea leaves from the tea liquor. Remember, she's not in a hurry. Just steady, steady, steady. You want to save everything because you're going to get a wonderful second cup from this. Let's see what this thing looks like. Oh, wow. That's a nice color. I kind of like that color. Oh, there's an aroma with this too. Let's enter the quality arena. Remember, for those of you who just started with us last week, what the quality arena is, we're going to test where the astringency and dryness is in our mouth. We're going to think about aftertaste, and we're going to think about energetics. Yes.
One of the participants says the wet leaves smell loamy with a stone fruit sweetness.
Loamy stone fruit sweetness in the wet leaves. Wow. That sounds good. Let's see if this is any good. Remember, this is 170 degrees, so you can take a 170 degree sip, which is larger than the 200-degree inhalation. You coat the tongue, and then you go to heaven. Oh, wait a minute. That's not in the script. I wasn't supposed to say that. You then think about that aftertaste. And remember, I said something about energetics. This specifically refers to how it makes you feel. Sometimes people use the word chi and all sorts of other terminology. Let's keep it to energetics because there's an actual physical reaction. And all of us are different, by the way, because genomically we're all different. So some of us are going to feel it immediately. Some of us it's going to take time. Some of us may not feel it at all. Don't worry. I'm going to take a second sip. And as I do this, I'm thinking about two things. I'm thinking I want to verify what that first sip taught me about the astringency, aftertaste, and any start of energetics. And then the second one, now I want to think about, okay, what's the aroma of this thing? What's the taste of this thing? Let's do it. It's your turn. Your turn to brew. So again, you draw water. You can draw any temperature of water between 175 or 170 and 212. Does not matter because what you're doing is making sure that the cups are clean and that there's no soap spots, nothing that can interfere with the delicate flavor of this wonderful tea.
Can you speak a little more on the energetics and what you are observing or what we are observing?
Yes, so energetics by type of tea tend to be different, but sometimes there are exceptions to this. So typically for red tea, typically what most people would be feeling is a warmth. I actually do feel that warmth, and it's a warmth that occurs in my chest up to my shoulders. Yes, that's what I'm referring to, particularly with this tea. Typically for a green tea, typically you're going to feel more of a cooling or a coolness. There are exceptions depending on the age of the leaves and the varietals. but this is typically what you're looking for. All right, so Tea Master is going through making sure all the cups are ready to go, dissipating the steam, putting the leaves in one cup, heating up the leaves, waking up the leaves is what we call it, shaking and smelling to make sure, am I really doing the right thing? Oh, goodness. And then you notice she pours back into the kettle. Why is that? That's so that she can control pour. What you're trying to do is not pour directly on the leaves, you pour on the side of the glass. And again, this isn't a stress test. You're not supposed to feel bad. Oh no, I missed, I hit the center of the leaves. No, don't worry about it. But you will get the best flavor if you can actually avoid pouring just directly on the center of the leaves. Now, you scald the leaves when you pour directly on. All right, so yours should look somewhat like this. Some above, some below, just a beautiful, beautiful picture and all sorts of little white hairs in there. Very natural. That's what it should be looking like. All right, we talked about that this is Fujian, and that's different from Yunnan. Yunnan is southwest China, long ways away from Fujian. The customs for handling tea are different, particularly red tea. Red tea appears to have originated either in Fujian or Anhui, or possibly both simultaneously. However, in Fujian, they've developed more craft techniques. In Yunnan, their techniques, while it's handcrafted, it's not as fine. The craft in Fujian is very fine, and the tools that they use to separate the tea leaves from the chaff, to look for uniformity, to handle that, they're all very, very fine, very, very different. Level of oxidation is quite different as well. Yunnan tends to be a little less oxidized, although autumn colors didn't demonstrate that, because autumn colors was oxidized at about the same level as early spring. But some of the other red teas from Yunnan that we have are oxidized considerably less, still at least 80%, but less than that 92, 93, 94%. The other thing, and I may or may not have mentioned it, the band where this is picked is from 4,000 to 6,000 feet above sea level. And it's only done in this village. They have a second grade. This is first grade. They have a second grade called Silver Junmei, in Junmei. And it's got more leaves in it. It's easier to handle from a processing standpoint, but it doesn't have this incredible punch that this has. So 2 grades, and that's the difference between them. There was one other point. Well, that's it. Timer's gone off. Oops. I took the cup off the table, which we shouldn't have. There we go. Now everything's in good order here. And you're going to separate the tea leaves out. You're going to save those tea leaves because you're going to get a great second. You can actually get a 3rd cup from this as well. And you're going to look at this beautiful color. I think you're going to be struck by a number of things right away. So go ahead and enter the quality arena. And while I am talking, think about not only what you're drinking, but think about it compared to what you had last week. Last week, the autumn colors was one way. This week, early spring is this way. Is there a difference? What might that difference be? Yes.
The initial tea liquor aroma was sweet cinnamon and it was fleeting. However, the sweetness lingers.
Sweet cinnamon fleeting initial aroma. The sweetness lingers. Ah, indeed. So by the way, while you're thinking, this tea at this grade is used as gifts for diplomats in China, particularly if they happen to like red tea, particularly if they've heard of this. So like I said, this first came to market in 2005. By 2006, this was the complete rage in China. It's just an amazing, amazing red/black tea. And this person, Liang Junde, was famous already, but he was famous but not recognizable. So within the tea industry, everybody knew him, but if he's walking down the street, nobody would stop him. Oh, can I have your autograph? After this, it's like, oh my God. And you see, even Jack Ma wants his autograph. Yes.
Another participant observes she's getting a strong drying on the top of the tongue.
Great observation. Strong drying on the top of the tongue. Yes, the drying still lingers in my mouth. There's a very strong drying.
Another participant observes the cinnamon was strong for them too, but there's a coolness that hangs for a long time and then turns to a dryness for them in the back of them.
Cinnamon was strong, but then what evolves is a coolness in the mouth. I like this description because I not only get that coolness as an aftertaste, I actually do get it right away as I swallow. It's really amazing. What was the last part of that? I'm sorry.
That it turned then to a dryness in the back of the
Dryness in the dry. Okay, so here genomically, this participant is different than I am. The dryness for me all over the front. I don't get it at the back. The dryness for this participant at the back. Nothing wrong with that comment. In fact, that's a good comment because we all get it in different places in the mouth.
Another participant observes for him, the warm leaves were malty and maybe a hint of fruit, but the wet leaves had the hint of florality. Yet the tea liquor has more of a cider-like scent that's buttery and has a complex sweet scent like honey fruit sweetness. A lot in that comment.
A ton. So let me deconstruct that because I love the range of this comment. So in the beginning, a hint of maltiness in the dry leaves.
Warm leaves.
Warm leaves, sorry. Then from moving from maltiness, we go to florality. That's in the wet leaves, right? In the wet leaves. So from malty, warm leaves, florality, wet leaves, all the way to cider-like. And I love the cider-like comparison because this is one thing in Western culture that when we're thinking of winter, we're thinking of Thanksgiving, and you heat up some homemade cider. I mean, oh my God, it's very much reminiscent of something like this. And just a wonderful flavor. And all of this, by the way, shows complexity. Early spring smacks you right away. But if you let it develop, and this is what I mean about being in tea rhythm. When you're in tea rhythm, you parse all these different times. And as you parse these times and stages, you get all of this difference and evolution We love tea that has evolution. Okay. So what I was saying was Liang Junde is now recognized in the street. He's been interviewed many times by Chinese television. I know what I forgot to tell you. I was searching for this. The other guy who I started to tell you about, who's dean of the tea industry, when he started working on this project, let me do the math in my head here. He was 111 when he died. So he was already in his 90s when he started working on this project. And this guy was incredible. They all are incredible. They're all incredible within the tea industry. And the fact that they were able to produce this, and like I said, in 2006, this just blew up the tea industry. And to this day, this is still mentioned in the same breath as Dragonwell and as Scarlet Road for its famousness. And I don't think they could have produced a tea like this in almost any other region of China. Fujian is really like a pearl in the tea industry because all the different types, not all of them, but so from the cliff tea perspective, from the southern oolong perspective, from the red tea perspective, from the white tea perspective, even the green teas from Fujian, world class. Most of them you haven't heard of because there are other teas in China that are also world class. But this thing, like I said, it just rocketed straight to the top. Yes.
How is it that Sophie's Cuppa Tea gets access to this highest quality tea?
The question is, what sort of bribes do we have to pay? Oh, wait a minute. You didn't use that term, did you? It's because of who we know and the years of making connections within the tea industry. No bribes required. What's required is time and energy to grow the friendships. We've been growing these friendships for almost 25 years now. And so these guys know that we're not come, take, and never return. That's not how we do business. And that's not how the Chinese want to be done, have business done with them. This is why this tea shop, compared to any other tea shop in the US, has this range. We have a greater range than any other tea shop, and it's not an accident. And we don't have a cult here. It's the tea leaves do the speaking. That's what we're about. We curate this collection for your enjoyment. All right, let's see if I've overtalked. Not yet. Gosh, I was on my way to overtalking, but it looks like I'm going to have a modicum of self-control here. So you got to taste this extremely interesting, unusual red tea. Last week was pretty good, autumn colors. I wonder what next week's going to be like. We went from autumn colors to early spring.
Summer?
You know, that would make sense, having a summer. And what do we do in the summer? We relax. Let's call it relaxation. That's what we're going to do next week. So next week, you're in for another type of big treat. Make sure you've taken good notes on this, because again, this is this opportunity to compare three very different, very excellent red teas and start to build your library, your range of appreciation, your range of understanding for red teas. Drinking Lipton's doesn't give you any range of understanding. Yes, the producer just said gives you heartburn. That may, oh, I probably should have said that out loud. Oh, well, sorry about that.
But it does.
But even worse. But this gives you an appreciation for what red tea can be like. And this is important because people will try and tell you things about red tea. People will try and tell you things about understanding tea. You saw the article that I sent. They'll tell you stuff with good intentions. This author had good intentions. This author's K&E. Remember we talked about K&E last week? Knowledge and experience, low. Their enthusiasm and taste for tea, high. Now let's see, let me think about this. Would I rather have high K&E or high enthusiasm? Turns out, knowledge and experience are what really at the end of the day count. All right, had great fun with everybody today. You're all spectacular as you've evaluated this tea. Great job on catching the error in that article, meeting the challenge. Looking forward to seeing everybody next week. Your responsibility this week, stay healthy. Bye-bye now.